it takes quite a event for me to go to the theater and see it. So I will likely wait for DVD, even though it is a biopic on Jackie Robinson called 42.
Yeah, when does it come out?
Oh, today or tomorrow, I think. This weekend, I think.
I don't know. You held up the standard title. I'm not entirely certain that time.
Have you ever seen Helvetica?
No, I haven't.
Do you have Netflix?
No, it's on my to-do list. I will see.
Yeah, put it on your queue, folks. I did see that there is apparently a very inaccurate book about web design titled 50 Shades of Grey, because anyone knows, right, that there's not 50 shades of gray, there's 256 shades of gray, because you have, all the numbers would be the same as a shade of gray, so 00 through FF, that's 256 combinations. So I don't know where they come up with 50 shades, because as we all know, there are 256 shades of gray. Clearly. Maybe they're the most popular, that could be. I don't know. At least I assume that's a web development book. I don't know. I never read it, so.
Some sort of design.
Yeah, could be. Saying we have officially lost control. It happens this way. It gets this point in the semester. You folks being adults and all, you probably are more aware. But like when you're a kid, you really towards the end of the school year start getting antsy and start getting summer fever, and you think your teachers are loving it like to the last minute, but they've probably been looking forward to summer break more than even you are. So. Yeah, and I think it comes back to the semester versus quarter thing. How do I want to say this? Right around the mark where a quarter would be over, my mind feels like the class should be ending. You know what I mean? Like mentally, like this is around week 11 or 12. That would be like the end of the semester, or end of a quarter if we were on quarters. And it feels like we're at the end of the class, but we still have a few more weeks. That doesn't mean I'm not going to give it my best effort, as I like to say. And I hope to God they haven't started recording this yet. I should leave the mic off. Oh, hi, this is Mike. I'm ready to start. All right. All right. We have left off talking about accessibility, and we're speaking in general terms, and then we're going to sort of move on to maybe speak in some more specific terms. And we spoke about the notion of universal design, and the notion of universal design is that it's not that we are designing for people with disabilities. We are designing for everyone. And there may be some special things that we do for people with disabilities, but many, if not most of those things, are things that will benefit people that even don't have those disabilities, at least under certain circumstances. So, for example, an audio clip, to have a transcript for it, that will obviously benefit someone that's deaf that can't hear the audio clip, but it might benefit me if I'm in a computer lab where there's no speakers. And it might benefit me if I think I can skim through that article quicker than I can listen to the audio recording, so I'll take a quick look through it, see if it looks interesting. If it's interesting, then I might go and listen to the audio or watch the video. So that's sort of the notion of universal design, is that many of the things that we do that have the impact of making the site more accessible also benefit people without disabilities. And at the very least, they don't provide they're not an obstacle. They don't bother people that don't have that disability. It's not like they get in the way or anything. The analogy I gave would be like the braille on the door outside. You know, an alt attribute on an image might not really benefit someone that isn't blind, that's not accessing the web via a screen reader. But it certainly doesn't really bother them. You don't really see it under most cases. And you know, the number of bytes that are contained in that are negligible as far as, like, you know, even the concern of adding some download time. There's virtually no change in the speed by adding alt attributes to your tags. The fundamental principles of universal design are multiple presentations and simplicity. Multiple presentation relates to presenting the same information a couple different ways. Simplicity, of course, relates to simplicity. You might say, and correctly so, that these two kind of move in opposite directions, right? If we add multiple presentation, we're making our page less simple. You know, a page with an audio clip and a transcript has more stuff on it, so is more complicated, even if only slightly so, than a page that only has an audio clip. Again, really the job of designing is really balancing always between providing functionality and providing simplicity. You know, it's not going to be the case that one of them is always going to win. You know, you are going to pick the mix of stuff that's appropriate for your given project. The one thing I will say as a cautionary thing is most people tend to err on the side of making things too complicated. That to trim things down and make them simple often is the way to go. So multiple presentation doesn't mean presenting the same material every way you can possibly conceivably think of it. It means giving a couple different ways, you know, so that people with different abilities and disabilities can handle it. Even if I was showing data, for example, I might show data in a graph and I might show a table of data. The thought being that a graph can't easily be visualized by someone that is visually impaired, whereas a table of data would be something that a screen reader could read. All right? And then maybe I write a summary paragraph summarizing the conclusions of the graph. All right? I always wonder, like, when I see a graph, okay, that's interesting, but what does it mean? Sometimes it's not obvious, like, what you're supposed to be noticing about it. So it'd be a case of presenting the same information 3 different ways. And that's reasonable. And that, again, would help everyone. Help people that are visually impaired, help people that are, quote, visual learners, as opposed to people that learn better by reading text, and so on down the line. Let's run down the list of potential disabilities and talk about multiple presentation versus simplicity. So we talked about vision-related issues, the most extreme of which is blindness. But there's also simply bad vision and color blindness. There is hearing. There is motor control. And there are certain cognitive disabilities. I think most of the disabilities we talked about fit in those categories. And I think we started this last time, but let's finish it up here. For vision, how does multiple presentation come in? Well, we have text, alternate text, and maybe even an extended description on our images so that people accessing it via the screen reader can get that read. I want to look up the extended description attribute, because that's one that doesn't stick in my head for some reason. again, under accessibility, they talk about the image and that. Long desk. The long desk attribute allows you to, if the alt description doesn't give sufficient content, you can do a link, and someone with the screen reader then can go and access that and get a description of what we're seeing in that particular thing. Yes. Yeah. Right. The difference is an alt. The alt description is just sort of a short description, just briefly describing the image. The long description is more detailed. All right, and it's a link to another HTML page where you could have a longer textual description of it. They also talk about you could do this. You could actually just create a link. That would link to something like that. So that's a couple things that we can do as far as multiple presentation goes for blind people. For people that are simply have bad vision, we can do things like give users a choice of fonts. All right, give users a choice of font sizes. A lot of that functionality is built in the browser, by the way, specifically font sizes. Use appropriate color combinations. Use clear, readable fonts, especially for the size text that we're doing. And if you remember, we talked about headings possibly being better in serif font, sans serif being for the body of the text. Now, all these things are simply good web design, but again, they have accessibility implications as well. As far as color blindness, we talked about never use color as the only way to indicate some sort of special meaning. All right. So if you have a warning message and you want to make it red, do something else with it too. Put a border around it, use a different font, any kind of thing that sets it apart from the rest of the text on the page. So if someone can't distinguish the color, at least they get that other signal. Simplicity as far as blindness goes. All right. Number one, reducing the amount of gratuitous elements for a screen reader to go through. All right. In other words, trim down your page to just what is essential. Now, the interesting thing is, as I'm saying these things, these are things that you probably should be doing anyhow, but there's the accessibility implication. The other big thing, there's a bigger thing if you have done HTML development in the past, is do not use tables for layout. All right, do not use tables for layout because tables are very complicated to navigate through if you're using a screen reader. The approach that we're taking by using the HTML5 tags and using our CSS to position produces a web page that is much more easily handled by a screen reader. So a simpler sort of layout that's HTML and CSS based instead of tables based is better. Now, if you haven't done HTML before and you don't know what I mean when I say a table-based layout, don't worry about it. Don't learn it. All right? Because we don't want you using that. But if you have done it and you wondered why, I've harped on that in the past, like if you've turned something in and there was a table that you use for layout, that's exactly why. All right? That's one of the reasons why. Let's put it that way. Another thing that can be done, and I don't know if this follows either of these two, is there can be a skip navigation link on your page. All right? Let's see if I can find an example of that real quick. You can make the link visible or invisible. If it's visible, then everyone sees it. If it's invisible, then only people with screen readers see it. All right. I should hope this page has one. This is a page about accessibility. notice that at the very top, there's a link that says skip to main content. All right? Why is that there? Well, it's there. Us being that we're accessing it visually by looking at the screen, we may not even notice it's there. If we notice that we disregard it, we may not even understand it. If we click in it, it simply bumps up to there. Let's go and let's see what this sounds like on a screen reader. Now, we don't have a really good screen reader here, but we have the built-in, what's built in the Windows. So I'm going to turn this on. Narrator, I hope we can hear it.
Foreground window. Microsoft Narrator. Okay. Push button. Foreground window. Now. Foreground window. Foreground window. Master volume. Slider. 100. Master volume. Dialog. Volume. Slider. 100. Mute. Checkbar. Foreground window.
Let me hit refresh and we'll listen to the web page.
Document, read only, busy. Document, read only, busy. Tooltip, reload this page. Tab. 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 Document, read only, busy. Document, read only, busy. Tab. Tab.
Okay. This is not doing what it is supposed to be doing, so I will...
Foreground window. Foreground window. Narrator. Help. Push button. Exit. Foreground.
It works on that. It's not working on this web page for whatever reason. Typically, people that are blind will have a better screen reader than simply the one that's built into Windows. There's one made by Kurzweil. There is one called JAWS by Freedom Scientific. And those are popular ones. The idea is if you're visiting a website and you're navigating it, a certain portion of the page is going to look the same every time. All right? So, for example, I go here. There's products, services, articles, resources. Articles. All of these pages have the same set of links every time. So, if the narrator was reading this page to the user, every time they went to a new page, it would reread that same set of links over and over and over again. So what there is there's a skip navigation, or skip the main content, or skip navigation. And if the person then were to access that link, they would skip over, and they wouldn't have to sit through and wait for every time you went to a page to have the navigation read to them. So again, it's a way to sort of... what we do sort of visually and automatically is a way to provide that facility to someone accessing with a screen reader. In other words, if we came to this home page and we were looking around, we'd see these links. All right? If we then clicked on articles, we wouldn't be focusing on those links. We already know that's there. Right? That's kind of filed away in the back of our head, and we'd only look at it if we wanted to click on one of them. But if we were looking through the articles, we would just visually just disregard those almost. I mean, they're there. We know they're there. We can click on them if we need to, but we're not going to dwell on them or focus them. The skip the main content allows people accessing with a screen reader to sort of do the same thing. Because again, it would get very tedious if you had to sit through the reading of all those links each time, not to mention the reading of all these links each time on the sidebar. So that's another thing that we can do for people that are visually impaired that don't necessarily fit the category of what I talked about as simplicity or multiple presentation. That's not really either. All right? No. All this does is we look at this link, that is a link to, we go and the link to this page, pound main content. Remember how we did towards the beginning of class, we did internal anchors on your page where we give it an ID that was main content or whatever, we link to that section of the page. Right, so it would jump over, the screen reader would jump over all those links and just start reading at that div or whatever main content was.
But in terms of
Mm-hmm.
if I'm hearing this correctly, it's saying for reading that it's instructing if you want to do something, press a space bar or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Is there any type of besides that, we're talking about how to feed information.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that you want to view design? From someone who's blind besides press a button, or is there a way to say, I don't even know. It's almost like you have more buttons available. You have, I sort of think about whenever I'm interacting with a website, there's a whole bunch of things that I'm just sort of bouncing around, navigating rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like there's a lot of interaction there. In this case, right now, we're talking about one, which is left.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other ways to?
All right. If I'm understanding the question is how would the user interact? How would someone accessing this via a screen reader interact with something to go in and select a link or to click on a link or whatever? First thing is again, no mouse involved, right? A person that's blind isn't going to be using a mouse because they can't see where to go and point to and click it. So they're not clicking on things. What they typically do is you use the tab key to tab around to go to the next link, the next link, the next link, and then you hit enter when there's the one that you want. In addition, you can build in keyboard shortcuts for certain things. So like you can build in that, control, H takes you as a link to the home page or something like that. So you can build in keyboard shortcuts into your application that handle that.
Are those fairly standard?
The tabbing through and enter is standard. In fact, even a sighted person can do that, I believe. Notice as I'm mousing through, it's actually picking links, and if I hit enter, I go to community. Here, it goes to products, services. You can very faintly look, you can see that the tab becomes a little bit different as I tab through. So that's how they would interact. As far as keyboard shortcuts, I don't know if those would really be standard. Those are pretty much done for your page or your site in mind. All right. As far as people that are hearing impaired, of course, the chief multiple presentation would be to have transcripts for any text. I guess that's either transcripts or closed caption in the case of a video. I know YouTube now offers a captioning, but that apparently people have tried to listen to my videos with that and turn the captioning on. Apparently that's not always accurate. All right. Pardon me? Okay, right.
That would be a lot of work.
Yeah, you'd have to take the effort for that, right? That actually might be advantageous because if I say something stupid, I could go back and correct the caption at least to make it sound smarter. So I'll have to consider that going forward. Yes? Question? Okay. So either caption or that. Motor control issues. We talked about keyboard access. Again, with motor control issues, typically the thing's going to be that really fine control over the mouse to go and click on something is going to be difficult. All right. or having someone to click too many times would be difficult. Now again, that's something that is sort of a basic design principle. All right, you don't want to have too many clicks even for someone that doesn't have motion control injury or a repetitive motion injury or anything like that. And it's frustrating even for someone that doesn't have these things to go and to point and to click on a link that's very tiny. When you magnify that to mobile, then it becomes even harder. You don't know how many times I go to a website and try to press a link and I end up pressing like 6 links above it simply because the finger, is hard to go and reach that. So by providing a big target, space between it, is going to benefit people that have this. It's going to be easier for them to click on it, and it's going to be beneficial for other folks as well. Lastly, possibly providing keyboard shortcuts. As far as simplicity goes, having good navigation so that people can find the stuff that they're interested in relatively quickly. All right, that's a flavor of simplicity. And again, it's funny because, or it's actually fortunate because all these things reinforce each other.